Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for this second of three sessions. We're going to be continuing our discussion and talk on 7 steps to soul resonance. So I'm going to start with just a brief recap of last week, just for folks that were not able to join us, and just to kind of re-anchor us on this path here. So last week we talked about anchor and consider as the first 2 steps of this process. So I just want to revisit those very briefly. They really are kind of the foundation of this whole process, and really about how we prepare ourselves and how we first greet the symbol. So in terms of anchor, that is reflective of the know energy from James's 7-word system, and it's about sovereignty and presence. And so with this, we looked at 4 keywords within the anchor step. The first being grounding. So grounding being feeling into the body, the breath, the here and now. Then moving on to essence, which is where we learn to touch what is most true in us beneath all of the noise that we deal with. And then the third keyword, agency, which is claiming our choice to engage. And together, these naturally flow and bring us into alignment, which is the 4th keyword, or the outcome of the previous 3. And that's where we found coherence of body, heart, and mind. And so again, this is the energy of the word no, not as rejection, but as a sacred boundary that makes space for presence. And as you'll see, as we move through this process, I try to use a lot of metaphors just to help people connect. And the metaphor here is really like anchor is tuning the instrument before you play it. So without tuning the instrument, the music is out of key, or it's not in harmony. So anchoring makes sure that we are in tune with ourselves. And the point being that this step is really only about us. It has nothing to do with the symbol at this point, but it's just preparing ourselves to enter into this dialogue. So then we moved on, and I'm doing this very briefly. There's a lot more detail to these, but we moved on to step 2, which is consider, which is the energy of the word hello. It's about greeting and openness. And so once anchored, we turn outward now toward consider. And the 4 keywords that we delved into here: attention, which is turning toward the symbol with presence; receptivity, which is about letting it arrive without rushing to interpret. We're not interpreting at this stage. And then inquiry, which is asking gentle questions without demanding answers. And together these blossom into recognition, which is the 4th keyword, but the outcome of the other 3 in this process. And this is a natural acknowledgement. Just, I see you, you are here. So again, the energy of the word hello, simply an active greeting and a respectful openness to the symbol. So a metaphor here would be like considering is like welcoming the guest at the door. You don't know even what they're there for yet, but you're greeting them with curiosity and respect. So yeah, last week we built this foundation, and we kind of tuned ourselves with anchoring and offered our first greeting with consider. And now we're going to take the next step, which is allowing the symbol to move deeper. And deepen and invite the symbol to step inside. So now we move on to step 3, deepen, which is rooted in the energy of the word thanks. So this is not thanks in terms of a polite formality. It's more of a posture of gratitude. It's an openness that allows us to actually be touched by the symbol. Gratitude is what makes us permeable, and it allows the symbol to move beyond being just an object that we're looking at, and starts to be something that's resonating with us. So without thanks, we kind of remain spectators. When we're in this posture of gratitude, we're allowing ourselves actually to be reshaped in ways that we might not expect. So movement 1, or keyword 1, is receiving. And that's about allowing the gift in. So imagine that someone hands you a wrapped present. You're admiring the paper as they hand it to you, but the gift isn't really yours until you actually take it into your hands. So that's the metaphor of receiving. And the symbols are like this. So they offer themselves, but we have to actually let them in. So it's different than simply noticing. Okay, so seeing is observing that something exists, but receiving, it's like opening your hands to hold something that's precious. So this might show up at this stage like just a feeling. Might be a color that lingers as you're now deepening this awareness of the symbol, or it might be just a memory that surfaces. It really is very individual. So just be open to what this this step is, or this movement in the step is doing for you. So what I would say is just read your symbol slowly and just say to yourself, I receive this. And then notice how it feels when you're letting the symbol in. Okay, and now we're going to move on to the second keyword within this step, which is acknowledging. So now this is naming what arrives. So for this, think about that guest that you've opened the door to. They've entered your home. Even before you know why they've come, you've actually nodded and said, I see you. You are here. You're acknowledging them. It doesn't mean you understand why they're there. It just means that you're honestly naming what has arrived. So using that analogy with the symbol, acknowledgement gives the signal dignity. It says that something here has come and I'm going to pay attention to it. It's kind of like shaking hands with somebody. It doesn't explain the whole relationship. It's just sealing the beginnings and the meeting. So if you want to say inwardly, I notice, and then complete whatever comes up. Even if all you can say is I'm noticing confusion, or I'm noticing just blankness, that's enough. It's just noticing some response with acknowledging. And then movement 3 is opening. So when we open, we're letting the heart widen. So for this, imagine a flower that's turning toward the sun. At first, the petals are closed and they're tight, but then they start to loosen and open up and spread. That widening is metaphorically what you're wanting to experience with this third keyword in this overall step. So if you can think of taking a really deep breath after holding on to tension and letting that out, suddenly there's more space inside you. It's an opening of sorts. And so at this point, this is where gratitude starts to expand. It's not about forcing optimism. It's about willingness. It's about saying, I'm going to soften enough to let this symbol take up some more room inside me. At this deepening step here, we're really in a different energy than the first consider step. But when you open and when you deepen into the symbol, it does carry some risk. To open up is to allow yourself the possibility of change, and that can sometimes feel vulnerable. And this is where staying in that vibration of gratitude as you're walking through this process is really important, because it makes that opening a little safer, and you're wrapping that process with trust. So what I would say here is ask yourself, in relation to the symbol you're considering, What happens if I let myself make more space for this symbol? Let the breath lengthen, and then notice if the image grows larger. Does it become warmer? Does it feel more alive as you open? And then as we've moved through these three aspects or facets here, the fourth is where we actually feel soul resonance. And this is the final movement, soul response, letting resonance actually speak. So at this stage, when you've received and you've acknowledged and then you've opened, something deeper starts to stir. And this is the fruit of the deepening phase or deepening step. And what I would say here is, think of it like striking a bell. If you've ever stood beside a bell that has been struck, you don't just hear the sound. I don't know if you've ever experienced this, but it's like a vibration you feel in your body, okay? And that vibration is like resonance. It's when the soul actually starts to vibrate in response to these various movements that we've been going through here. And it can show up differently. It can be a somatic shiver. It could be just sudden peace that you feel. It could be a memory, a quiet yes inside. It's very subtle, but you won't be able to mistake it. You will feel something at a level, at your soul level. Yeah. So here, I think it's important to draw a distinction and to dive a little bit into the difference between emotion and what I'm calling soul response. So I don't know if that's something that people are thinking about or wondering, Angela, why this just sounds like emotion that you're describing. I would say emotion is more like the wave on the surface of the ocean, let's say. So you see that turbulence, you see it can be a calm sea, it can be a rough sea. That's the metaphor I would use for emotion. It's fleeting, it's shifting, it changes. But if we think about soul response, think about the swell underneath all of the surface, the larger movement that isn't always apparent, but it is a deep, almost structural movement within the currents of the ocean. That's more like a soul response. So we can't manufacture this. It's something that we can only allow, create the conditions that are favorable for that kind of soul response, and then allow it. So at this point, I would say with your symbol, when you're working with the symbol, just ask inwardly, what is stirring at my deepest levels here as I meet with this symbol? And then just simply wait and notice. Just stay in that quiet space of letting something arise. And sometimes that can take patience, but in going through this, you're setting yourself up for the conditions that will allow what I'm calling here a soul response. So bringing this together, deepen. It is the step of gratitude and resonance. So we receive. We're taking that gift into our hands. We acknowledge. We're nodding to the guest at the door. We open, like the flower turning towards the sun. And then soul response arises like a bell that keeps ringing long after it's been struck. And this is the step of thanks. It's gratitude not as obligation, but rather as a posture that allows resonance. And this is where the symbol really starts to move from being like an external encounter to more like an internal and inner presence. So that finishes step 3. I want to pause here for a moment and see if there are any questions before we move on. I know I'm kind of moving through this fairly quickly, and each of these could probably be its own session on its own. So acknowledging that it's a little bit of a pace here. We've got 2 more steps to go as well. So, but I just want to make sure that people are feeling this step of deepening. Okay, there aren't questions, and let's move on. Let's move on to step 4. So step 4 in this overall framework, it's actually one of the most powerful, I would say, and liberating stages. Okay, reframe. It's really the energy of the word goodbye. And it's shifting the relationship with the symbol. It's helping us release projections and outdated meanings as we move through the 4 facets of reframe. So here we're going to be talking about release, disentangle, realize, and then finally the outcome being freedom. So we have deepened our relationship with this symbol, and now we're required to reframe. We're actually in reframe allowing the symbol to shed old associations that we might have laid over top of it, projections, stories that we might have been bringing to the table, rather than allowing it to just speak clearly to us. We begin to see it differently here, more clearly. So the first movement here is release. So letting go of what no longer serves. And here I would just invite you to imagine that you're carrying a backpack full of heavy stones. Each one of these stones is like an expectation or an old association, let's say, or maybe a meaning that's been handed down to you. But they don't actually belong to you. And the moment you put that pack down, your whole body feels lighter. And so when we're talking about symbols, the symbols are often burdened by our baggage. We bring our interpretations to the symbol, things that we've inherited, projections again from our past or assumptions that we're carrying. And release is really about the willingness to set that pack down. We don't discard the symbol. We're just letting go of that extra weight or the baggage that we've unintentionally attached to it. So here, as you're looking at your symbol, I would just invite you to ask, what assumptions or old meanings am I ready to release here? And just breathe out as if you're just exhaling what no longer belongs. And so, yeah, it's the release is like exhaling deeply after you've held your breath for too long, right? The letting go of that state. It's immediate and it's cleansing and it's freeing when you really let all of that go. So that is release. And then we move on to disentangle. So I would say disentangle, which is the second keyword, second movement here, is once again separating yourself from the projections. And I think maybe the best way to think about this is thinking about 2 threads that have become tangled up. I don't know if there's any people that sew. Any sewers in the room? Yeah, it's 2 threads that have been knotted together. So with patience, you separate these threads so you can see them both clearly. That can be frustrating. It can take a long time if you've ever had to untangle a thread. But it's really, disentangling is really recognizing this is me and that is the symbol. And it's allowing us to separate our personal history again from the symbol. And it's kind of that key difference between saying, this symbol reminds me of my past struggles versus this symbol has its own voice. And it's actually touching my past, but it's not limited to that. So it's a part of me that I can work with and take forward. Yeah, another metaphor might be for anyone who's not a sower, but maybe a gardener. Have you ever seen a tree that has had, a vine or ivy that's growing up the tree? Disentangling, I would say, is like clearing that from the tree. The ivy is clinging, or the vine is clinging, but the tree has its own life, and it's actually strengthened once it's freed from that uh, entanglement that's not supportive. So you're asking yourself here with the symbol, what belongs to me and what belongs to the symbol itself, as we are moving through reframing here. So now the third keyword in reframe is realize. And this is where we're seeing with new clarity. Once we've released and then disentangled, we've got more space open here for realizing. And here I would say realization is like when you wipe the steam from a mirror. Suddenly you see very clearly what was always there, right? So here we're allowing fresh meaning to arise. We're going to notice what the symbol's showing us now in that moment, unclouded. All those old projections and the steam has been wiped away and we can see clearly. So this stage can feel surprising and humbling maybe, because now we're starting to understand how much of what we thought the symbol meant to us was actually our own overlay, maybe even our own projections. So here we would ask, what am I seeing freshly now? What is a new angle of truth that's revealing itself here in this realize stage? Then comes the facet 4, the freedom. So again, we've moved through 3 keywords here, taking us to an outcome. This outcome is freedom. It's lightness and spaciousness. So if you think of opening a window in a stuffy room, all of a sudden there's air and space and light. And that comes when the symbol's no longer weighed down by our projections. It feels freer, feels lighter, and so do we at this stage. And again, it's not a freedom from the symbol, but a freedom with it, and a freedom to feel what it is in a reframed way, a new space. It's the fruit of reframe. So here we want to sit for a moment with our symbol and say, what new space has opened in me as I let go? So that is reframe, the 4th step in this process. So I'm going to bring this all together again, like I did with the previous step. It's the art of letting go and seeing anew. So we release old meanings, like setting down that heavy backpack. We disentangle ourselves from the projections, like untangling those threads. Then we realize with new clarity, once we've wiped the fog from that mirror. And then we rest in freedom, like opening a window to fresh air. And so this is the step of goodbye, not as rejection, but actually as more of a blessing. It's I release what's no longer true so I can see what is true. And it's what makes transformation possible. It's very powerful and liberating, this 4th step in the process. So now, any questions about this 4th step? Shall we just keep rolling? Okay, let's move on to step 5, which is the re-engage step. And this is anchored by the energy of the word please. So after we've reframed, which can be a difficult task, now the air is clear and we've untangled from assumptions and projections. And so we felt this freedom, start to feel this freedom, but freedom itself isn't the goal. Freedom is the doorway. Okay, from that freedom, now we turn back toward our symbol with a completely fresh perspective, a new heart, a new opening, and that is re-engage. It's like the act of a renewed relationship. Again, please is the keyword, or sort of the energy that we're working with here, but it's not a begging at all. It's more of a devotion. It's the kind of please that says, I want to meet you again, but now clear and true. So once again, this step has 3 movements. We're calling these movements calling, devotion, and attuning. And when we're able to live these, then the natural outcome is entrusting, the 4th keyword. Okay, so let's dive into movement 1, calling. What is this? Inviting the symbol back in. So let's recap the rhythm of what we've been walking through here briefly. So far in anchor, we met ourselves. In consider, we greeted the symbol. In deepen, we let it touch us. And in reframe, we cleared what was obscuring it. So now with fresh clarity, we are reframing, actively calling the symbol back and re-engaging. So calling, it's not passive, it's an invitation. It says to the symbol, come closer, I'm ready to meet with you again without the old stories in the way. So a metaphor here might be welcoming a guest back in after you've tidied up the room. So this time the space is ready. You've put away the laundry into the closet that was sitting on the couch. Maybe you're welcoming them back in a different environment. And so maybe even like picking up a beloved book that you've set down for years. Now you're coming back to it, but you're reading it with new eyes, with a fresh perspective. So here you're saying to the symbol, I'm calling you back fresh and clear, and I'm ready to meet with you anew. And that is the first facet of this step. The second, devotion, approaching with reverence. And so here we're not talking about worship at all. We're talking about care. We're talking about loyalty, reverence, an attitude of tending something that's precious because it matters. So here, think of watering a plant. For those of us who are gardeners, or hopefully most of us have at least one house plant in our house. You don't control the plant's growth, but you can care for it faithfully, knowing that there's life there. That's the aspect of this devotion, really, is you're doing a routine thing that is carefully considered and for the purpose of nourishing. And in the context of our symbols here, it's treating the symbol like a living companion in a way. It's not just a tool. It's not just a static image. We're not treating it like an object we need to decode. We start to treat the symbol like a partner in a dialogue. So it's like placing a photograph of a loved one on your desk, because the presence matters to you. I have a picture of my father on my desk, and I see it when I'm working. It just brings me back into that aspect of your presence matters to me. You've passed, but your presence still matters to me. This is the kind of energy when we're talking about devotion. And so if you want to say inwardly to your symbol, I honor you, I value this meeting, and I will listen with care. This is the devotional shift in tone here, from casual curiosity really to more of a sacred dialogue. And then that moves us to the third keyword, which is attuning. And this is where we're starting to listen for resonance from the symbol. It's really about fine-tuning ourselves to the frequency of the symbol. Again, back to the metaphor of the instrument. We're tuning an instrument to the right pitch so that the harmony can be heard. So when we tuned ourselves in anchor, it was tuning ourselves to our own ground. And re-engage here is about adjusting to the symbol itself so that relationship can flow. And this requires humility. because sometimes that symbol is humming at a pitch that might feel strange to us. It might challenge us. So attuning is really asking you to adjust your ear, your heart, your mind, in order to hear more clearly and feel what the symbol is trying to communicate. And so here I'm going to date myself a little bit here. So just a time warning. I'm going to use the metaphor of adjusting a radio dial. So I don't know how many of you are used to a radio that has an actual dial where you are tuning from one station to another, but you get static until you hit just that right spot where the frequency is bringing in the signal. And you can go past that and get static again, and then back you go to get that signal clear. That's really what you're doing in this facet. You're attuning yourself to the symbol. You're trying to tune in to what's coming through, and this creates harmony and a clear signal and a clear sound, where before there might have been some friction or some noise. So that's attuning. And then when we get to the fourth keyword here, and trusting, this is the place where we're now yielding to the guidance of the symbol. So when we call and devote and attune, something else comes out naturally, and it is in trusting. It's the fruit of this re-engage phase here, or step. And that's where the symbol really takes root. And then we allow ourselves to be guided. So a metaphor that I would ask you to think about here is dancing. I'm going to bring in a dance metaphor, James. At first, you're counting the steps. At first, you're wanting to stay in control. Let's say you have a partner that you're dancing with. There comes a point where you have to begin to relax into the partner's rhythm, where you stop trying to control, and you just flow with the partner, with the music, with the rhythm of the dance. Yeah, and that's assuming you have a good dance partner who has rhythm. But this is really the feeling that will come at this stage. This is starting to feel natural. This is actually starting to feel like the right flow. Or another metaphor might be, think of floating on water, on a body of water. You're spread out. You're trying to like stay on top of the water. The moment that you stop fighting and you just allow the water to hold you, it actually does. So this entrusting is all about that yield, that trust that carries you further than effort. Effort actually sometimes can actually get in the way. So entrusting with a symbol means saying, I don't need to control the dialogue here. I'm going to trust what's unfolding. I'm going to trust what's being shown, even if I don't fully understand it yet. And yeah, it's also not passive. It's really a deeper form of participation, where we allow guidance to emerge from this symbolic dialogue and process that we're stepping through here. So now some of you might be wondering why I'm using the word entrust instead of just trust. What's the difference? Trust to me is an inner stance. I just want to clarify this because it's a very nuanced, I believe it's nuanced. Trust is the inner confidence that we have. I trust myself. I trust the process. I trust the universe. But entrust is relational. Entrust is when we place ourselves into that trust. So what do I mean by that? I don't know if I haven't done this before, but I think of the idea of a trust fall. Are people familiar with a trust fall? It's where you are allowing somebody to catch you. In that context, trust is like believing that friend is going to catch you, but entrust is the moment when you actually fall back. That's a subtle difference, but it's this subtle shift in this step here that, and trusting is that we're actually allowing ourselves to be guided. We're falling into that guidance. We're giving over some control to the dialogue and letting the symbol lead us where it may. And that is the fruit of this step of re-engage. So you're just saying to your symbol, I entrust myself to what you're showing me. And then notice what maybe softens a bit when you're letting go of that need to control. Okay, so bringing this step all together, re-engage. That is the step of renewed dialogue and devotion. We call the symbol back in freshly. We meet it with devotion, honoring its presence. We attune ourselves to its resonance. And then finally, we entrust ourselves to its guidance. The step of please, not in a begging way, but please as choosing relationship and calling the symbol back with reverence and letting it lead us further. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground here today. This is a very deep practice, and we are really skimming, as I said earlier, we're skimming on the surface of here, of this. But with this session 2, I just want to round this out and summarize the complete set of what we've talked about. We've talked about the deepen step with the thanks energy, receive, acknowledge, open, soul response. Then we moved on to reframe, which is the goodbye energy. And here we're releasing, disentangling, realizing, and reaching freedom. And then re-engage, the please energy. Call, devotion, attunement, entrustment. Yeah, and so this is kind of the overarching 3 steps that we have delved into here today.